here we go. I just want to be able to talk about some things pertaining to the First Amendment in memes, which I thought were funny and some just kind of really doubled down some of the things that we've been talking about. The First Amendment reads as this: Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press or of the right of people to peaceably to assemble and to petition the government for a redress of grievance. You can read that again on your own, but it's very clear about the freedom of speech. Again, it doesn't say that a company, well, of course, it's written back way before companies, but it doesn't say anything about things that you should not say. Again, now I'm going to read this this is actually a friend of mine, David Tatman, who's got another podcast. He actually posted this. I'm kind of stealing from his timeline. I don't know that he wrote this, but I just thought it was very, very profound. Have you actually read the First Amendment? Congress shall make no law abridging the freedom of speech. That's it. That's the heart of the First Amendment. It protects you from criticism, not from disagreement, and not from consequences. You can speak your mind, but you can't say anything anytime. Here's what free speech does not protect: speech that incites violence, true threats against each other, fraud and deliberate lies, obscenity, and yes, defamation, knowingly false statements that damage. Saying something you know is false and harmful, that's not free. That's not free speech. It's defamation. The First Amendment protects your right to speak. It does not protect without consequence. Again, it's a meme that I thought was profound. It says it very succinctly. You know, I'd ramble on for an hour if I was reading that. A quote by Charlie Kirk. Picture Charlie Kirk for those of you who are just listening to the podcast. Free speech is not just saying what you want to say, but it is having to hear things that you don't want to hear. It's like I said earlier, free speech isn't just being able to say what you want to say. It's being able to hear other people's right to free speech in a way that you actually might learn something and learn some other ideas. Flash back to 2023, Jimmy Kimmel celebrated Tucker Carlson's getting fired from Fox. So just like the politicians on both sides are being hypocritical, so are the people in the media who are saying the guy in office is the H word because he might be censoring it. It's not just politicians that are censoring it and celebrating it and trying to control it. It's also the people in the media. So open your eyes is all I'm saying, because they are all doing it to control us. To all liberals and Democrats, point out the last incident where a conservative killed a liberal for having a different opinion. I will pause, or you can go back to that later. The proves that people who truly support our Constitution and our rights and our freedoms and our liberties are indeed the peaceful ones. Maybe that's because we also believe in the Second Amendment. The freedom of speech protects citizens from government, not from personal responsibility and the consequences of someone's words or actions. Of course, that says it a little bit differently from what I said earlier, but it's worth repeating that. Say what you want, but realize there are consequences. And that's something that's not being talked about a whole lot right now either. One of the things that has people on the left and Democrats and even a bunch of Republicans afraid is something that Pam Bondi said. She said there's free speech and then there's hate speech. And there is no place, especially now, especially after what happened to Charlie in our society, we will absolutely target you, go after you if you are targeting anyone with hate speech. So where I think she went wrong, and just like I'm pointing out, like I did with Trump, on what maybe could be done better, is maybe she didn't mean it that she's going to try to shut down free speech. Maybe she meant it as they're going to go after people who incite violence, or as I pointed out before, things that the Second Amendment or the First Amendment does not protect you from saying, or does not protect your consequences from saying. So maybe somebody's incite violence. That's the people she's going to go after, not if they speak out against the administration in a peaceful way. The other person that got attacked for saying that he was going to violate the First Amendment right because of Trump's orders or whatever is Pete Hegseth. The Pentagon came up with some new rules, and I read those rules, and none of them violate the First Amendment. As a matter of fact, when I read it, I'm like, well, why do we even have people of the press or media in the Pentagon? The media in Pentagon and people in the media are allowed to go through the Pentagon and do interviews. First Amendment right, I get it, but then they're going back and they were being allowed to just disseminate the information that they were getting, and sometimes they were getting information that maybe shouldn't have been said by the people being interviewed, but now they're putting some stricter regulations on what they can report because the Pentagon wants it to be cleared as not being secret information, and they don't want reporters just walking around. Let's not forget that Kamala Harris wanted to have Donald Trump's X account or Twitter account at the time suspended. So you see, like I've been saying earlier, they're doing it on the other side too. It's not because Trump is the H word. Remember, when they were in office, they were doing it. It's up to us. It's up to we, the people, to hold our elected officials accountable and protect our rights and our constitutional rights and respect it. It's up to us to respect each other and not allow ourselves to be divided on our First Amendment rights, and have respect for each other's opinions, so elected officials don't get the power to divide us up. I truly think Kamala Harris, Trump, whoever, have said things to galvanize their base, which does divide us up, and it does galvanize their base in a way. It keeps them in power, which is why I've said it before. Next slide. The next meme. Jimmy Kimmel's suspension was an assault on free speech. It was Roseanne Barr and Obama. And then the quote says, "You mean like when you and your wife called Bob Iger at ABC to get me fired over a tweet?" That's when Obama got Roseanne Barr fired. Again, this is happening on both sides of the aisle, not just one. So for the people who are like, "Oh, Trump's saying this, Trump's saying this," I get it, but let's not focus on one person. Let's focus on ourselves and empowering each other, because I don't think that Trump's to take away our First Amendment. Anyway, the other meme is just a girl in a hat. I just liked what it said. It said, "So last week we saw people cheering when a little girl's father got wiped off the face of the earth. And this week we see people crying over a late night show that just got canceled." Excuse me? Oh, this was in the meme. And I get it. It goes back to, like I said, not only the hypocrisy, but the cognitive dissonance of paying attention to what's happening in such a way that you help perpetuate narratives and empower the people purveying the narratives because of your cognitive dissonance, and not saying, "Hey, look, we should all mourn a father who was about free speech," and do that in a way. Look, if we have respect for each other's opinions, not many people get fired anyway. The next one, if you think it's okay to assassinate someone because you disagree with them, that makes you a fascist, because that's what actual fascists do. Pass it on. The next meme: freedom has cost too much blood and agony to be relinquished at the cheap price of rhetoric. That one is by Thomas Sowell. And I tell you what, I love Thomas Sowell. Let's reread that one. I'm going to analyze it. Freedom has cost too much blood and agony to be relinquished at the cheap price of rhetoric. The rhetoric, i.e., the narratives and the ideologies that get put out through the media and created by politicians and specific activist groups, that cheapen it cheapens our freedom, it cheapens our rights, because the rhetoric, our rights get lost in the rhetoric. Our rights become secondary, tertiary to the rhetoric and the narratives when we allow it to cheapen up. And it's true. Our country has fought too hard for our rights. Next meme: you won't agree, but Charlie never used hate speech. He just used speech you hated. The next one's a Forrest Gump one. On top, in 1997, the Brits let their government take away all their guns. You know I'm a gun guy because you can see Bond Arms up on my show all the time. And now the Brits get arrested for memes. I know, right? I'd probably get arrested for all the memes I'm putting up today. But the reality is, the people allow the narratives and the rhetoric to control them in Britain. And they allowed their elected officials to have the power to control them with those narratives. And the people got divided. Government got more control, and that's how it all started. And we need to look to Britain. The next one is by Mark Twain: the truth has no defense against a fool determined to believe a lie. I brought this one on because it does pertain to the First Amendment. When the First Amendment is getting controlled, lies will be purveyed as truths. And when lies are being put out constantly as a First Amendment right and a truth, or a lie using the First Amendment to be put out as a truth, right? A lie being using the First Amendment to be put out as a truth. And people aren't hearing everybody else's First Amendment, and they're not getting educated, then the truth has no defense and gets lost, in my opinion, in all the lies. Go to RNC store if you know the benefits of apricot seeds. Go to rncstore.com/WWFA for a big discount. The next one: don't teach your children to read. Teach them to question what they read. Teach them to question everything. The value of an education is not the learning of many facts, but the training of the mind to think. That's by George Carlin. I'm going to read it again and then summarize it. Don't teach your children to read. Teach them to question what they read. Also what they hear. Teach them to question everything. The value of an education is not the learning of many facts, but the training of the mind to think. And that, my friends, comes with respect of information and for each other's right to speak and put the information out. Because remember, the First Amendment isn't just about what you say, it's about what you write. It's about what other people write. Next meme: people love to live offended so they can avoid accountability. If they can remain the victim all their lives, they can avoid the challenge of maturity. That one doesn't pertain so much to free speech as much as it insinuates it. People are offended by everything everybody's saying. And I kind of think that They like it that way. Again, the elected officials, powers that be, divide us up on narratives, and then they galvanize people on their narratives, they separate them up, and then they point to the other narratives and say, those are bad. Those narratives are bad. So when that person says that narrative, you're going to be offended because it's hateful, it's racist, it's bigoted. But they like it that way, the powers that be, and the victims or the people that want to be a victim like it that way, because then they never have to have accountability. Here we are, next meme. Oh, by the way, I'm still over here. I'm right here. If you're watching on video, Connor Boyack, the Tuttle twins. Beware the expert whose credentials are used to silence debate rather than inform it. It's what I said earlier, by the way. Remember, experts are always taking away our right to free speech because they use their credentials and their information to make you feel stupid. So you shut up and don't give out your information because you're made to feel stupid because they seem so much smarter. True expertise doesn't intimidate, it illuminates. That was the last part of that quote. Next meme. It's crazy how some people need no proof to believe a lie, but demand endless proof to accept the truth. It's maybe one of the downfalls of the First Amendment because people can say anything they want. But when you limit who can say things, then you limit the information that everybody hears. But when you don't limit free speech, everybody hears all kinds of truths. And then the lies kind of go away. This is by a Democrat of all things. But hey, on my platform, I like to bring up both sides so that way we can kind of look at it and see where the truth is and where the solutions are. In 1934, Germany, he says, in 1934, Germany passed a law making it a crime to tell jokes or laugh at its leaders. I know. You're thinking Jimmy Kimmel. Continues, we can't go down that road because what's next is you can't post what you want on social media and you can't text your friends anything that might get the government upset. That's not the way it should be. The people shouldn't be afraid of their government. The government should be afraid of the people. You see, Democrats want free speech too. They just want you to say the things that they want you to say and think and feel, right? For my local listeners, don't forget about door furniture. Either way, if we allow ourselves, which is what everybody's doing, to point to our leaders and say, they're saying this, they shouldn't be saying this, they're limiting free speech. No, they're not. They are. If we just point our fingers and not respect each other and not expect accountability from our politicians and elected officials, that's what happens. Next slide. No one is more hated than he who speaks the truth. That's Plato. Got a picture of a statue of an old guy. No one is more hated than he who speaks the truth, which is why Charlie Kirk got shot. That's what people on the right say. People on the left say it's because he was, spewing out hatred, which, if you listen to his videos, never happened. But because the powers that be are able to convince people through their narratives that if you don't believe a certain way, then if you think then you hate everybody else who doesn't speak the way you are told or convinced. So that way, it seems like nobody else is saying the truth. Anybody who you are told to hate, you are also conditioned to believe that they're telling you a lie. But when they're telling you the truth, you don't believe it. And they become the hated ones. And we got Of course, the wellness company, go to twc.health/WWFA. They believe in freedom of speech because they're always talking about other alternatives that you can do for your health. Go to twc.health/WWFA. I'm almost done with my slides, guys, my memes. The next is a picture of the View. FCC chair thinks investigating the View worthwhile after Jimmy Kimmel's suspension. Goes back to what you're saying. I know, you see, the FCC, but once again, if we, the people, let's say we stop complaining about the View's First Amendment right, or Jimmy Kimmel wasn't getting fired for a violation of because he, or wasn't losing his First Amendment right, he was violating company policy and his ratings were down. Here, in this example, but it applies to both, if we just simply respected each other's opinions, if we don't like what they're saying, don't watch it. Don't even comment on it. Ignore it. Let the ratings speak for themselves. And then when they go away, nobody cares and nobody's fighting over it. They went away because nobody watched them. Or if people are, whatever the case may be. That's my reason for bringing that up, to make that point. Next meme, you do not have a constitutional right to lose your employer money. It was, what I liked about this was it was another way to say what I've been saying, that when you're working for somebody else, you don't have the right to just say things that you want, especially if it violates company policy, where it causes their ratings to go down and they lose money. They can fire you. And it almost, the way I feel this, I kind of feel this way when the other side, the Democrats, are like, oh, they fired Jimmy Kimmel. Just shut up. Let them complain. Because it's that fighting back and lack of respect that only empowers them more. Respect them for their opinion, the show host, and respect the people who are supporting them for their opinion. Let them. So what? So what? It only empowers us. When we let them, we get empowered. We get empowered when we let them have their say. And remember, God, our creator, who gave us our freedoms and liberties and our right to free speech, backs us up. Our next slide, the ruling class fear. Oh, this is by Karl Marx, by the way. Karl Marx, you see, it happened. We get stuff from both sides that when we look at it differently and talk about it, other things come out. Karl Marx says the ruling class fears education because it makes obedience impossible. Even Karl Marx knew the ruling class, like I've been referring to, the powers that be, people that control us or divide us, they fear education. They don't want us informed because it makes it harder for them to have control over us. It makes obedience impossible. So double down on that. Let that sink in next time you want to complain about being informed on other people's First Amendment rights, because you don't have to agree with what they're saying, but when you know what they're thinking, you might find a solution that's better that we can win on. And actually, I think I had two more slides. The next one's Ayn Rand, the freedom. It's a picture of Ayn Rand and from her speech, a quote from her. The freedom of speech of private individuals includes the right to not agree, not to listen, and not to finance one's own antagonist. Like I said, let them. Because if you let them, they're not controlling how you think. And they're going to get tired of saying it, and they shut up. The freedom of speech of private individuals includes the right to not agree, not to listen, and not to finance one's own antagonist. And when you fight it, you basically are giving up your own right, because while you're fighting their argument, you're not getting to speak your own mind or your own truths. And you're end up getting drug into their weeds and their fight, and they win. Let them shut up and let them. And guess what? That's the best way to silence them. Next slide is actually from, I actually have a couple more slides. Next slide is from a friend of mine being taught to avoid talking about politics and religion has led to a lack of understanding of politics and religion. What we should have been taught was how to have a civil conversation about difficult topics. Like I said, respect. We've lost teaching our children respect in school. When we continue to teach them respect and have respect for how each other thinks, and we teach people and we talk about politics, we talk about religion in a respectful way, we learn to have civil conversations which lead to solutions and takes power away from elected officials, takes power away from the bureaucrats, and takes power away from the rich and powerful. Noam Chomsky said, in the next meme, if you don't believe in freedom of speech for people you disagree with, you don't believe in freedom of speech at all. Again, if you don't believe in freedom of speech for people you disagree with, you don't believe in freedom of speech at all. We've got to start double downing on letting people talk, even when we disagree with them, because that's how we win the argument. You let them spill out all their, the minute you stop them and argue with them and you get drug into their weeds and they win as a result. But when you let them talk, if they're wrong, it's going to be obvious to others that they're wrong. Let them. Some guy named Kay Creek said if we replaced cancel culture with critical thinking, we'd have empathetic conversations instead of emotional reactions. And by talking, we learn to separate honest mistakes from actual hate. Charlie Kirk says in the next meme, insanity is thinking it's wrong to lose your job because of what you said, but what you said was Charlie should lose his life for what he said. It's because of a lack of respect. Don't think in terms of that they should lose their job. Let them. Think in terms of having respect for what they said. Sometimes that respect not only shows the truth or the real truth, but also lets other people see them for who they are. And my last meme of the night and the last meme of my show is a picture of John Kerry. It says, the First Amendment stands as a major block. Remember, he wasn't so pro First Amendment either when he said that. Again, we allowed it to happen with a lack of respect. It's only perpetuate if we continue to have a lack of respect. And of course, it's some founding father dude that says that's the whole point of it. The First Amendment stands as a major block when we respect each other's opinion, when we learn to have civil conversations about it, and when we respect each other and we give each other the space to exercise their freedom and their First Amendment rights. We empower ourselves with God's blessings because he gave us those rights. And the truth will win. And that, my friends, is why we have to let them respect civil discourse. I get it. I'll end on this, not on a sour note, but my conservative Republican friends are going to say, we are the party. We are the people that show love and mercy and respect. They don't. They're always fighting us. They're the ones who shoot people. They're the ones who riot. I do. I agree with that. I get it. I do. I get it. I gave a lot of hints throughout this night, this episode, um, on how we can do it. It's baby steps. I get it. It's nothing big. It's not a big solution, but it takes harder to take the extra step of respect. It's a little bit harder to go that extra mile. It's a little harder to offer solutions to people who don't agree with us, but we got to stand firm. We got to keep doing it this way, little by little. Let them speak out. Let them speak their false lies. Let them say what they want to say, and expect better of our leaders. But the way we do that is empowering them in ways that they realize that we have respect for others, that they're not going to get more power by dividing us up further and galvanizing us on ideologies and narratives that fire us up. Instead, we let them know that we're with them as is on just truth and not being fired up by narratives and ideologies. That, my friends, is how we get started. I'm going to end this show and this episode on that. Please, I'd be honored if you shared the podcast, shared the video with somebody that you know that believes in our First Amendment right, someone that you really want to inspire with it, somebody that you think might be able to be helped with it. And I thank you again for your time. Have a great day. God bless America. God bless our Constitution. And please, God bless respect for each other.